Well, I want to welcome any one of you who are listening to this podcast, and I'm here with Henry again. Henry and I had a nice conversation a while back about his life and moving to Minnesota and so forth, and I said at the end of it, and we talked, that it would be nice to talk about his memory of his mother, because she's been such an incredible part of his life and mine as well, being chaplain at Ebenezer during many of the 12 years that she was at the care center. And I'm really glad to be with you, Henry.
Yes, sir, Mr. Don. Absolutely.
So maybe if you'd be willing, just kind of bring us back to what you remember as a kid, your mom, and things you knew about her as you grew up.
Well, my mom was born April 17th, 1924. And I believe by the time she reached the age of 18, between 18 and 20 years, that's when I was born, March 21, 1945. I can recall my mom and her ways of doing whatever she wanted to do and however she wanted to do, how she lived her life from that point up until she passed away November 12th, 2019. And all those years, my mom was the type of person with a personality that everyone she met could do no wrong. Everyone. She always had something nice to say to everybody. She was very polite. It didn't matter what it went on out there outside the home. It didn't matter to her too much about who said what to who and how they did things. And she was concerned that she was the one that was going to offer the olive branch and be the nice person to get things done.
So you remember her as a very just caring and welcoming person to you as her child.
Absolutely.
And then friends too that came over?
Yes. And everyone who knew her always enjoyed her company. And she loved kids. My mom loved kids. Even as I got older, I got into those teen years, and she would see a family, and
Yeah.
she was always focusing in on the children.
Yeah.
Not so much the adults, but eventually them too. But she really loved children,
Yeah.
and she loved what they had on. She always made a comment of what they were wearing, and she was always asking their moms and their dads, is there anything that they can do? You see, my mom, she was a people person, and I can recall that she wanted to become a nurse. And living in Los Angeles at that time, and I want to go all the way back to, I would guess probably around somewhere between 1948 and 1952. She was going to become, and she did become what they call a candy striper, a nurse who was a nurse's aide, and they called them candy stripers at the time, working at the county hospital in Los Angeles. She wanted that job. She loved it. She was there for a while. She didn't mind making up the beds and dumping the bed pans, but as long as she can associate with folks, that was her thing,
Yeah.
She didn't care how messy it was. And as I grew up and started getting older and started looking at some of these things that my mom was doing, I said, "Oh man, Mom, why did you do this?" But it was the people that she was really concerned about.
Sure. Now, your mother had you when she was about 18 years old, you said?
About 18, 19, right up in there.
And how about your father? Where was he in the picture at that time?
Well, my dad, if I recall, I may have seen him 3 times in my lifetime.
Okay.
First time I recall seeing him, I think at the time I was in my early teen years. The second time I saw him is when I came back from military.
Okay.
And the third time I saw him was for a brief moment, and he was just passing through, going back to his hometown, which was in the Carolinas.
So he was really not in the picture as far as you were
No,
concerned.
no,
So were they ever married, or did he?
yes,
They were
they
married.
were for like 3 to 5 years, somewhere around up in there.
Sure,
That's
sure.
what I was told.
Yeah.
And then somewhere around maybe late 40s, early 50s,
Yeah.
they had gotten a divorce.
Sure. And then you and your brother were the result, I guess, of that marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But it was your mom then that carried your lives forward, right?
yeah. My mom and my
And
grandparents,
your grandparents
they
too.
sort of stepped in
Yeah.
and became very important in our lives. My brother and I, my mom.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. And then growing up there, I mean, this is Los Angeles, and I don't know exactly where it was in Los Angeles that you lived, but
In the metropolitan area,
yeah,
Los Angeles, California.
yeah,
But we moved. I can recall, and I've been told this, and I do remember some of it, that from the time that we did live in Los Angeles, for some odd reason, we were moving around like every 18 months to 2 years living in that city. And I have no clue as to why. Um, I may have asked my mom, but she really
sure.
didn't explain it. Um,
But we can assume that she probably didn't have a lot of money.
you're absolutely right about that, because I can remember her going to the welfare offices and filling out paperwork, and she would bring us
Sure.
along, and if she needed to. I can recall
Yeah,
how the county at that time, how they operated,
yeah.
and they come
So
to your
she probably
house.
had some, uncertainties about her jobs, whatever they were. And she was raising you kids too, right?
Yeah, well,
And you had grandma and grandpa to help out a little bit.
yeah, particularly grandpa.
Grandpa, yeah.
Grandma, she just took it all with a grain of salt, so to speak.
Uh-huh.
But grandpa, he stepped up to the plate.
He was helpful.
You know,
So you kind of moved around. You remember that as a kid,
yes.
And then did you land in any particular place for a while, or was it pretty much like that, where every couple years you were?
This whole moving thing went on from, oh gee whiz, all the way up until the time I graduated from high school.
Okay, yeah. So you were in that kind of a uncertain place in some ways, but you did get to stay in the same area for school, so you could go to school.
Well, there was a time where we lived on a certain side of the city of Los Angeles back then, and for some odd reason, we were living in what they call projects,
Uh-huh.
low-income projects,
Sure. Yeah.
and that was located in Los Angeles. The projects we lived in, but it was more in the eastern part of Los Angeles. And then we were there for like 2 years, and then suddenly, for some reason, we needed to move, and my mom said to my brother and I that we were moving over more into the southern part of Los Angeles. I couldn't understand that, because all my friends and everybody we grew up with, more or less from middle school to elementary school, were all in that one area.
Sure.
And I was getting ready at the time. I was getting towards finishing middle school, getting ready to get into high school.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I didn't want to move. All my friends were in this one area. And if we were moving on the other side of Los Angeles, further south, that posed a problem with me.
Yeah.
I'm going on 16 years old at the time, and I told Mom, you're taking me away from my friends. I don't want to go to a new school. I have all my friends here.
Yeah.
My brother, he took it with a grain of salt.
Okay. So you did move then, and
we did move,
and you had to leave your friends up there where you were.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I figured I'm thinking ahead of the curve, so to speak. I didn't want to give my mom, give her a hard time about this. I know she had other problems she had to deal with. I wanted to be not part of the problem and the issue.
Right.
So I decided to wait. Let's do the move. I wanted to see how things were going to turn out the first week or two after we made the move.
Uh-huh.
I decided I can get an out of bounds pass to continue going to the same school that I wanted to go to. So I go to the attendance office. I talked to them about it, and they said, yes, but you got to bring your mom here so she can sign off on all this stuff. And that's exactly what I did.
So the move happened, but you got to go back and stay with your friends. This
Yep.
is right. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. But now I had to commute
Yeah.
from one side of the city to the other side of the city using public transportation at the time. It didn't bother me whatsoever. As long as I can see my friends,
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah.
You know, and I
So you liked
continue.
school. You had friends there.
Yeah.
And you stayed in school and did your thing.
Stayed in school, graduated, got good grades. I wanted to make sure my mom, you know, I didn't want to be a burden to her, so to speak, you know.
Yeah.
I sort of saw other kids my age get into trouble, get into issues. I
Sure.
didn't want to take my mom down that kind of
So
issue.
your love for your mom was kind of a means by which you stayed mostly out of trouble.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
wanted to stay out of trouble. I figured my mom had enough to deal with.
Yeah.
You know,
You're a sensitive guy.
I try to be.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Yeah, I really do. I try to be
And-
sensitive. I try
and
to
I-
think about
Yeah.
the big picture of everything, you know.
Yeah.
What is related to what? What happens if you do this to relate to something else?
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't
yeah.
want to put my mom in the middle of all that. You know?
Right. Right.
She had issues that she had to deal with during that period of time. And, you know, and also my mom was a caretaker of her parents. That was
So-
important for me to understand that. And so, if
So
I
her
could help
parents, which would be your grandma and grandpa, they were the ones that kind of helped her out a little bit.
yes,
And then she was the one that helped them out.
that's right. That's right. Because my grandparents, they were a little bit more stable in where they were living. And we went to, my brother and I went to schools that were nearby them. So when school was done for the day, we could walk to and from their house to school.
Aha.
Even though wherever we were living, back and forth, up and down, whatever we were going, that was a whole nother
So
issue. But
that was an option too after school, was to go to see grandma and grandpa's
that's
house.
right. And my mom would come over there and pick us up, and we'd go home, or, you know,
Yeah.
because she was the caretaker of them, so to speak, mostly during the week. You know, well, it would have been simple and easy for us to just go to grandpa and grandma's house, you know, at the end of the day in school, and go from there. That's the way we worked that one out.
Sure.
You know.
Well, any other stories about? I remember some time ago, and this may somewhat relate to your mom and how she might have reacted. But I think you were one that you had some good friends,
Yes.
and you did a lot of social things together.
Yes.
And I remember. Did you talk about the car that you got to drive and?
Oh, yes. It was a 1949 Buick Roadmaster. And that was a car that a friend of mine, his mom, had that car parked in her garage. And I had no clue that car was there, parked in that garage. And I was the only person in that whole group of kids I used to run with that had a California driver's license, because I got my license at the age of 16 at the time. And it allowed me to have a little bit more insight, so to speak, as to getting a hold of this vehicle and driving it.
So you're 16, you get a driver's license.
Yes.
You were motivated. I mean, you didn't have a car.
That's right. Couldn't afford one.
But you got a license. That must have been quite a thing that your mom allowed you to get a license,
Well,
or did she not have
she
to?
didn't go with the right off on the bat. I had to kind of talk to my mom
Right,
for a
right. But
while.
that's
And we got
amazing
it
to me.
done though.
So you got your driver's license. Now are you about you're in high school, I guess.
High school.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you had more what response? Well, you had more access to legally driving
Absolutely.
than your friends
Than my
probably did.
friends, yeah.
Yeah.
And I look back at it now, and maybe some of those so-called friends, we hung out because I had the driver's license.
You might have been the
And
guy
then,
that
yes.
they like to hang around
You're right,
because of
there you
that. Yeah,
go,
right. So, if you don't mind, I just remember that you tell me one time that
yeah,
little
it was this car that my friend's mom had, a 1949 Buick Roadmaster, and the car was parked in a garage in there for quite a long time.
Yeah.
It looked horrible.
Yeah.
It looked bad. But my friend talked his mom into letting us pull that car out of the garage if we can get it started. And she was concerned that, well, wait a minute, who's going to drive this car? You're talking about pulling that car. How are they going to, what? Oh, Henry got a driver's license. Oh, he does? Yes, he does. So we were able to get, a few kids together and stuff like that. We got the car. We had to push it out of the garage. We got it out of there, and we sort of did a little, how would you say, a little car wash deal going.
Yeah.
And it was fun. And the car, we got it out into the street.
So it actually ran.
Yeah, we found it ran. We got to clean it up,
Yeah.
And somehow somebody came up with some money to buy a brand new battery. We got a battery to put in there,
So you kind of did a little updating of the car.
Yeah, we kind of upgraded it a little bit.
Yeah.
But the car was horrible. The only thing we really liked about that car was the radio.
The radio did work. Okay.
The radio worked wonders. So we came up with this big, bright idea one summer. I think it was somewhere around 1962, 61 or 62, that we were going to take this car and drive it to the local beach. That was a lot of planning on our part.
Yeah.
Because it was just, we just didn't go to the beach just to be going there. So we had to figure out the route, how to get there, et cetera, et cetera. And we figured all that out. And so one day on a weekend, there was about 13, 15 of us all met at a certain location, and we all decided that this is what we were going to do. And
now we're talking about one car and 13 to 15 kids.
That's right.
And you're telling me that 13 to 15 kids all got in that car?
We all got in that car, arms and legs hanging out all over the place. And back then, it wasn't, a big issue about seat belts and headrests and all
right,
that.
That was before that safety business was.
Yeah, those cars had bench-type seats.
Yeah.
So here is a car coming down the road from Los Angeles, with the eastern part of Los Angeles. We had to get into West LA and head to the beach. And here's a car coming down the road with all these arms hanging out and the radio blasting.
Yeah, let me get this picture now. You got this old car, which is a big car, really,
yes.
and benchy, and you got 13 to 15 kids.
That's right.
in there. And then your picture is arms and legs hanging out the windows.
Windows down.
So you're driving,
yes.
right? You're driving. You're trying to keep the arms and the legs out of your eyesight, I suspect.
Absolutely.
And I imagine the radio's moving?
Yeah, the radio's on, turn loud.
Oh, man, was that ever a scene?
Oh,
and
that
you
was
actually made it down the road for a while.
Well, yes, we didn't get to the beach.
Oh,
we got as far as West Los Angeles, which we never really ventured into West Los Angeles before, which is only about, at that time, was about maybe 7 miles just on the other side of the city going westbound towards the beach. And for some reason, we decided that this car needed some water because we could tell that it was overheating. So,
So this car with 13 to 15 kids is all of a sudden,
all of a sudden,
oh my God!
Yes.
So you had to pull over somewhere.
Well, instead of pulling into a gas station that we didn't see, we went down a side street and a residential street, and somebody had a water hose out watering their lawn, but there was no person holding the hose. The hose was just sitting there with the water turned on.
So you found a hose just with the water turned on, nobody around, but you stopped and you had a little need for water.
Yes. In West Los Angeles, with all these kids pulling down one of these side streets, the 13 of us pulling next to the curb, and we needed some water, so we just helped ourselves to some water. We weren't trying to bother anybody. We just needed some water.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, somebody decided that they need to call the local law enforcement, known as the LAPD. Before I can get all those kids back in the car and we could take off, I see a black and white pulling up behind us. And the officer gets out. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. 13 kids in this old 1949 Buick Roadmaster over in West Los Angeles in an affluent area. And we all had to get out of the car, and he got us all lined up, and he asked us what was going on, where we were going, what we were doing over there. We figured we weren't bothering anybody. We were heading to the beach. Well, he says there might be a couple of issues here, and he swore up and down that no one had a driver's license, and he wanted to know where that car was coming from. Well, when I produced a California driver's license, it changed the whole thing.
So you're having that driver's license. You were able to prove them that you were legal to drive.
Absolutely.
And it didn't matter that there was 13 to 15 kids in the car, particularly at this point. At that point in time, laws were a little looser.
Yes. But he decided, and his partner decided that we were not going to go to the beach that day or that night. So we all had to as he was, somehow I think he pulled us all together. He put some of the kids got into the black and white in the back and wanted to know, what part of the town we were from, and he wanted to know how we could get back there, and that I needed to take that car back to where I got it from, et cetera, et cetera. And he says, let's just make this easier on everybody. And he thanked me for producing a California driver's license, and so we ended up didn't make the beach scene.
Didn't make the beach, but you had to go back home to the folks.
Had to go back home. Yes, but we did not give up the idea of getting to that beach. We did end up getting to that beach, but on a completely different scenario. We had to leave the car behind. We had to get an adult chaperone later on. Maybe during some type of school recess or something. And that's how we got to the beach. But we didn't think that far ahead.
Well, you're in high school, and you had a driver's license, and you had a car, and all your friends were there, and what the heck,
That's,
This is. I can't imagine my grandkids having that kind of an opportunity in this day and age. But I think it's a story that anybody that has been a kid would. I mean, we can all relate to the possibilities that you're talking about.
So somehow I had to explain this to my mom. Because that came up. And I think it was because somehow they got in touch with the school. The school got in touch with the parents. And my mom would ask me and question me about it. And I think she says that was not the reason why I went through all that to help you get your driver's license. There was other reasons why I wanted to do it, but that was not one of them. So,
Yeah.
you know, it sort of taught me a little lesson.
Well, there you go. And you survived it. And apparently the police, at least in your case, weren't highly vindictive about dealing with you guys at that point. It was
They weren't. They had a little smile on their face, and we
they
weren't
saw
convinced.
they were probably thinking about their own potential
Absolutely.
childhood
And you know,
escapades. You never know.
yeah, and I understood what was going on at the time. You know, this is kind of an impulse thing to do. We did plan it for a while, and
Yeah,
we
yeah,
wanted to. We got an okay. It's not like we took the car out without getting an
sure.
okay for the loaner.
You were you weren't trying to cause trouble. You were
No.
just your judgment might have been a little bit shaky.
Right.
But all those kids with the arms and the legs out the window,
Yeah.
that picture
Yeah.
is just
That
a
was
great picture.
Absolutely.
I can't imagine how much
yeah.
fun that guy
Yeah.
must have had. If anybody saw you driving down the
Oh
road
man.
with all, and then the music was playing, and
Yeah.
I bet you everybody
we
was
were,
having a
you
great
know,
time.
Some, I thought a carnival was coming from someplace. But that driver's license when I did get it, and I got it as soon as I turned 16.
Uh-huh.
And it really helped my mom in a way because I was able to do some part-time work after school,
Uh-huh.
and save a little money, and was able to get me a little hoopty, as they say. You know, I got my mom and took her to the store, some places that she needed to go, that where she was, depending on public transit, and take mom
So
here,
it
take
was
mom there.
helpful to your mom and then to you. Well, I just had to take you on that memory trip because
I'm glad you did.
I when I first heard that story, I just thought that was one of the most priceless stories of being a teenager I can imagine. Right?
Yeah, we had fun. We had fun that day, and it turned out okay. Even though that the kids that were with me were driving, those parents wanted to know, how did you guys get from point A to point B? And who is this guy Henry with a driver's license? We would like to meet that kid.
Yeah, I bet that was
That's
true.
what I was told.
Oh, sure.
So we had a little parents, kids, a little conference, and stuff like that. They were all nice about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, Mom, and somewhere about we got into around 1973, 4, or 5, or somewhere around in there. Living in Los Angeles, my mom's her health was declining, and we had to make some decisions about who was going to continue taking care of my mom and her health, and see to it that she got taken care of. And this is where the care centers started to come into play.
Now, in between there, you were in Vietnam.
I was in Vietnam. I left. I graduated from high school in December 1963, and about a year later, we were on our way to Vietnam. We didn't know what a Vietnam was until we got there, and they told us it was on one of these need to know if you need to know it.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things.
So you had that period of time where you were in the military. You were not at home, obviously.
No.
And then when you got back, that's when your mom's health started to. You said in the early 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my brother was still around with Mom. He hadn't gone into the service yet, but he didn't have the patience I did. Sure. I learned to do things and deal with certain adversity, and my mom's health started to deteriorate pretty fast.
Right.
And I think it's because she put in so much time taking care of her parents and being a caretaker of them.
So she would,
and she put 110% into taking care of her parents, and she forego a lot of the things that she could have been taking care of.
She sacrificed her life in a lot of ways for your kids and her parents too.
Absolutely.
So she was a caregiver.
She was a caregiver. Absolutely.
Yeah. So had her parents passed by the time she had her health decline, or were they still living?
My grandparents, my grandfather passed in mid-70s,
Okay.
around 1974, 3 or
Sure.
4, around up in there.
So kind of in that period is when her health started to take it
Yeah,
a difficult track.
right.
Was it mobility? Was it other health issues? It was hard to say.
It was hard to say.
Yeah.
I really didn't quite understood what was going on because
Right.
I was in and out. I was having
It's
my own
okay. Yeah.
agenda.
Yeah.
I
But you
I
knew
was
something wasn't quite the way it had been.
I spent so much time in the military
Yeah.
that by the time I came back, things changed. Friends were gone.
Yeah.
I didn't really know what my mom was going through. I
Sure.
was 9,000 miles away.
Yeah.
Um, and so I had to kind of learn all over again what was happening.
And so when you found out, she ended up, as I understand, at some point getting in where she had to go, where she could get some help, like as a
Yes,
nursing home.
absolutely. So she spent 12 years in a care center out in California. Because
So
her health was really going fast, and I felt some decisions have to
right,
be made
right,
here.
right.
And my brother and I, we thought about this, and we couldn't spend our time to be the caretakers of mom because we were having a life that we had to live,
Oh
and we
yeah.
had to work, and we had to go do this, that,
So
and the
was
other.
this when she was in about what, her early 60s?
Early
or-
60s.
Okay.
Early to mid 60s.
And
Yeah,
that's when she needed that help because of
absolutely.
various needs.
Absolutely. And she had a hip replacement that needed
Uh-huh. Okay.
needed to be taken care of, a hip issue. Something went wrong there. I don't know to this day what it was. It's a medical issue.
Yeah.
And then she had other problems that she had to deal with.
Yeah.
And then we got to a point where my mom response as to living in this kind of environment, mentally, she was being challenged because she was such a people person that she missed being outdoors and around folks and away and talking to and looking at and experiencing a lot of things that other
So
people
she
would
was
do.
feeling isolated.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And this was at the nursing home in
Yes.
LA.
Yes.
And that had to have been difficult. Now I know a little bit of you had two children, of course.
Yes.
And you had this daughter, and what I remember,
Yes.
when you moved up here, you were telling me about your daughter was kind of looking out for your mom at that point.
Yeah, she was sort of my eyes and ears, and and my go-to person when the decision came and I decided to move to Minnesota. She was the one that looked in after my mom at the care center.
Yep.
She was there quite often, and everything, and helped mom, as best she could.
Yeah.
And she helped my mom with communication to me.
Yep. Yep.
Los Angeles to Minneapolis, and she was there.
So
But
that
then
was
my mom still wanted me there,
She missed you.
Yeah.
You and her were very close
We're very
emotionally,
close.
and then if you may just tell me a little bit about what happened to your daughter, because I think that was important.
Yeah,
in the
my
story.
daughter, she got very ill, very sick, and she became she had 2 kids,
Uh-huh.
and her husband was a really nice fellow. He was an electrician by trade,
Yeah.
and but she was getting sicker by the day, by the week, and she had cancer.
Wow.
And this cancer took her life much quicker than I realized. I'm here in the Twin Cities, keeping my family issues and everything going.
Yeah.
Mom wasn't here yet. She was still in California.
Right.
And my daughter called me and her husband talked to me on the phone and said, can you come here right away? Before I could get on an airplane and leave Minneapolis to fly to LA, she passed.
Man,
Just
what a
like that,
shock.
gone.
What a shock.
Like it was like overnight. Here one day, gone the next.
Yeah.
Things like that do happen in life, I
Yes,
guess.
and then you that left your mom basically with no family down there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No one to come in and cheer her up and look after her.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, and I learned that people who live in these environments and things, they have other needs too. And you know, sometimes like when my mom was here, this care center here in Minneapolis, you know, I would go out and shop for her. I'd bring her things, you know, and
Oh
cheer
yeah.
her up with little
Yeah.
trinkets and things. So the day came where another decision had to be made.
Yeah.
I got a call one evening, and from my mom's friend, one of her friends that she became good friends with, and she says, "You know, Henry, your mom misses you so much. What do you think about making a transfer?"
Uh-huh.
Oh, what transfer? Yeah, how about maybe making a direct transfer from this care center to a care center of your choosing in the Twin Cities? She says, "Let's work on that." And I said, "Oh, that's interesting." She says, "Well, why don't
Yeah.
you just get out, look around, and get back to me, and we can, you know, maybe come up with a plan."
Yeah. And that's how that started, was the idea to bring your mom up here to Minnesota.
And that's exactly true.
And your mom had never been living anywhere else except like
All
LA.
her life was in Los Angeles.
Los Angeles. Wow.
Yes, and she never experienced any of some of the things that she experienced when she got here. But that's a whole nother story.
Well, of course. Now you so you had you found a nursing home. You can tell us how you found the nursing home.
Well, I just got out and decided to drive around and stop at a few places and paid some visits and looked around and talked to some folks and then took a little notes and had it all listed down. And
Yeah.
but then when I got to Ebenezer, I had already gone to the maybe 4 or 5 care centers
Sure.
before I got to Ebenezer. And Ebenezer was kind of at the bottom of the list, which really doesn't mean a whole lot to me,
Right,
because of the mere fact that it was all about place and time and availability.
Yep.
So by the time I got around to Ebenezer, I decided to go in and talk to some people and see what they had to say and sit down and everything. And they gave me the tour,
Yeah.
you know, and then I think what happened was that the atmosphere there, to me, when I compared Ebenezer against the other places I've already been,
Yeah.
the atmosphere to me was a big difference. And I felt that this atmosphere would have fit my mom's personality to a T. And that's what I was looking for.
Sure.
The atmosphere and the people who run the place and the camaraderie there and the folks who are being cared for.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
would fit my mom great. So I decided that's it. I don't need to look anymore. So I called my mom's friend out there in California, and she's retired now, of course.
Sure.
But she was the activity director out there, and when she was activity director for 40 years at that care center out in California. And so I got in touch with her, and I says, I made a decision.
Yeah.
And she says, okay. She says, let's get the management involved in it. And I'll do what I can on my side, on my end. And you, Henry, you talk to your folks out there at the care center and see what their needs are and what they require, and da-da-da-da-da. It was all done within a week to 7 days.
Wow.
And my mom's friend,
Yeah.
what she did was she got my mom a ticket, one-way ticket to Minneapolis, St. Paul. And she got her on the aircraft, and her and a friend of hers got her to the airport, got her into the airplane, got her buckled in, the whole 9 yards. And the rest of it was my deal when she landed at Minneapolis, St. Paul. I met her there, They got my mom off there, cramp and everything like that. She
Yeah.
was still in the wheelchair. It was amazing, man, how quick this thing went. And so I got her into the care center at Ebenezer, and the rest is history.
Wow. That is an incredible story.
It was really something. I really didn't understand how this was going to work, and it worked so smooth.
So once the paperwork was done, it was all just like clockwork. Huh?
All I needed to do was make sure that, that what my mom's needs were, that could be taken care of. This doctor over here in the Twin Cities, whoever that doctor was,
yes,
talked to that doctor out there in Los Angeles, and they got it all coordinated. And this is what the needs are for this person. And I wasn't involved in that part. The only thing I really had to do was get the coordinator of friends
yeah,
to do the traveling.
And from there, you ended up having your mom back in your life.
Absolutely.
And she got to have you in her life. And you were, as I saw you, and I was the chaplain in that setting for most of those years that your mom was there. Of course, I retired a little before she left us.
Yes.
But I knew she was well cared for, because there was this guy who would always come and make darn sure everything was the way it should be.
Absolutely.
And it was a model of family involvement with, the patients there that not everybody had. And that's what really impressed me. And then, of course, from there, you and I got to know each other, of course. And,
that's right.
And you were working. You were driving
transit.
Metro,
Metro transit.
And so I know you had a busy life that way.
Mm-hmm.
But then you'd come and show up. And I think there was some point we had a little men's social group, and
yes, the men's social group.
And then I said, hey Henry, how would you like to be part of that? And it worked out.
It worked out great, didn't it?
Yeah. So then that's when we could hang out a little bit, the two of us, in the setting of working out with the residents that they were there.
I think that in that whole 19 to 20 years that I spent visiting the care center, not only did I was there to work with and help my mom, and work with my mom and bring things to her that she needed. My mom, and I recall that she always wanted to dress nice for everybody.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And she even back in the early days, she wanted to have the makeup and the lipstick and the things that she always was used to. And I used to, inundate it with all that stuff and go out and shop for her and bring it to her, and and all the dresses and the sweaters.
Absolutely. and she wanted to be in every activity that ever happened.
At Ebenezer. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, that was, like you said, she was social, and she wanted to be around people, and I loved her myself to have her there.
Yeah.
And for a long time, she was in the room right next to the chapel.
That's right next to the chapel.
And that also was a good memory for me.
Yeah, that was very good.